Say it with me, for we walk by faith, not by sight. Hey guys, welcome to Cheap Old Cars and Culture. Cheap Old Cars and Corners. I don't know, one of the two. Today we're going to talk about, one, how I think we might be spending a little too much on mods for these cars and just going with what's out there and what's available instead of kind of going that old school hot rod way of making stuff work, right? So this Mach 1 here, it has a little bit of a drop on it, okay? It really doesn't have much. What I spent on the drop for this, and I get so many compliments on this, it's not really that low, but people tell me it looks really good, it has a good ride height. There was a guy here just a minute ago that said, look, really good ride height. What I did to this car is it has bullet springs in the front, and that was 1/4 of an inch, okay? Now, I already had those around, but every now and then they pop up online. You can get them for 50, 100 bucks, whatever. From the factory Mach 1 stance, that lowered the front of the car 5/8 of an inch. A Mach 1 is 1/2 an inch lower than a GT from factory. 5/8 plus a half inch is 1 inch and 1/8. So 1 1/8 inch in the front. I think it looks great. The rear, compared to a GT, 6/8 of an inch of drop. So 1 and 1/8 in the front, 6/8 in the rear. 6/8 is 3/4 as well, if you want to do that. But the whole thing is, it's not super low. And some people want slammed. Okay, cool, I get it, right? But you spend a lot of money, and if you go any lower than 1.5 inches, 2 inches on these cars, you're losing handling ability. You're going beyond what the suspension was designed to do and operate at, and really it's not a great thing. But this isn't just about Mustangs, okay? So this kind of applies to all cars. You can take things too far, and sometimes you spend a lot of money to take things too far. So this car, good drop. This bullet here, I just took the front isolators out, and it's got a great stance. It's a little bit raked, it's not super low, right? And so I've got almost no money in those drops. So let's look at this one. The blue bullet. I've got the most money in this suspension kit, okay? I think I'm about $1,200 or $1,300 into this drop because it was low enough that it needed different shocks and struts, Fox body length ones, okay? And the springs were stiff enough that I needed not just your basic shocks and struts, I needed a performance set that had stiffer valving to control these springs properly and make it not float and stuff, but make it nice and tight and handle well in the corners and all that stuff. So I'm with the springs, the shocks and struts, the caster camber plates, and a few other little odds and ends and bushings and stuff like that. I'm into this thing for I think about $1,300 for the drop. Let's go look at this red car out here because this is really interesting. Now I do like these things with a little bit of a rake to them. You can kind of see the differences of the two cars here. The blue car is definitely lower than the red car. And if your whole thing is you just want low as possible, this isn't going to be what you're after. But look at this car. It's got a good stance to it. Now, what I've done on this car is Mach 1 rear springs. I would like to find a set of bullet rear springs and put on it. That would get me an extra 1/8 of an inch to 1/4. Somewhere between 1/8 to 1/4 on this car because it's not as heavy as a bullet. So normally I'd say it'd be a 1/4 inch on a V8 car. On a V6 car, 1/8 to 1/4, somewhere in there. The front is kind of interesting, and if you saw my other video, you'll understand why I did this. I'll go over it just a little bit here. On the front, I dropped it with 99 Cobra springs. Now, 99 Cobra springs sit pretty high. They sit kind of like a GT or a V6. They're pretty up in the nose, but they're only 500-pound springs. Whereas a bullet or a Mach 1 has 600-pound springs. This car being a V6, being a lighter car, I didn't want to do 600-pound springs in the front of this one. Now, I paid $50 for the rear springs, and I paid $40 for the front springs plus $50 shipping. And so I am $140 into this drop. Now, I am going to have to replace the front struts. They're the original. The car has 107,000 miles. I have already replaced the rear shocks with the factory length ones off that. They are the Coney Orange, not a super high performance thing or whatever, but the factory length ones off the blue car on this car. And you could maybe take some of the price of shocks and struts out of that one, but I'm saying the full amount because I lowered it enough that I had to change them. It didn't need them changed. They had already been changed for maintenance purposes. This drop here, I don't have to change anything. I can run new edge length rears and new edge length fronts. Now I am low enough that it is kind of starting to push those a bit, and so maybe I could go Fox body front struts on it, but I have to get front struts anyway. That's not any extra cost. Does that make sense? I'm kind of cherry picking a little bit, but what I'm getting at here is I'm $150 into this drop. It's not super low. I think it actually looks really good. It looks kind of purposeful. It has a little bit of a rake, which I like on these cars. Not a big rake, not like an old muscle car rake, just a little bit of rake, but kind of not the point. Yeah, yes, I spent less on the red one, but that's not really the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is this car will handle better on a road course or an autocross, but not really on the road. That red V6 will keep up with this one at the speeds that at sane speeds, and I always talk about that at sane speeds. You know, back curvy road around here in Arkansas is 55-mile-an-hour speed limit typically, and I'll run up to 60, maybe 65 sometimes. But you just try to keep it. You keep your momentum up, you keep your speed up through the corners, and you try to make it fun without like really pushing the speed limit stuff, because you don't want to wreck, you don't want to hit a tree, you don't want to get anything crazy. I'm not 17-year-olds with a death wish anymore. On the street, in what you're actually going to be doing, the $150 I got in that drop on that red car is as good as the $1,300 in drop I have on this car. So why did I spend $1,300 on this car? Yes, I do like to sometimes push this car a little harder, and I do like how it's good and firm and everything. The biggest upgrade, honestly, was the seats. This has the Corbeau seats. Is my door unlocked? Let's take a look in here. You guys ought to be able to see it without having to move the camera. Look at this. Look at this, guys. Can you see it? These Corbeau RRX seats are, without a doubt, the best improvement I've made on this car. I think with the seats, with the added lumbar support, I think I've got $1,400 in these seats. The single biggest improvement I've made to this car is these seats, because they hold me in place. And that's that driver feel thing that I talk about. Now let's take this a little off track here, okay? People, a lot of these YouTubers, I've got another video out about this, and I've talked about it in other videos too. Everybody talks about how BMW is better, Mercedes is better, all these things. Guys, honestly, like, your leather dashes and the fact that you spent more money on that car doesn't actually make it a better car. The panel gaps inside are tighter. Who cares? I don't care. This car is 20-something years old. There's no cracks. There's hardly any rattles. Only that center stack in the dash around the HVAC and radio. That's the only thing in these cars that rattles. And I've had 4th Gen F bodies, and I've been in some vets, and I've driven a C5 vet, right, recently. Just one C5 vet I've driven. But one thing that really stood out to me about that car was how many squeaks and rattles and how much flex I could feel, and the plastics moving around. That kind of shocked me, to be honest with you. I get they're great handling cars and everything. They're great handling at that limit, which you're not really getting to that limit on the road. If you're getting to that limit on the road, my personal opinion, you're pushing way too far and you're being dangerous and reckless. So these guys have their BMWs and they have their Mercedes and they spend all this extra money on them. I'm going to refer you guys to the October 2010 issue of Motor Trend. And there's a YouTube video about it as well. It's one of the early ones with Randy Popes. In a drag race, that live axle 2011 Mustang, but that's the first year of the 5-liter, so Gen 1 Coyote. The S197 platform is a lot stiffer than the SN95 platform here, for sure. And they ain't no doubt about that. You don't really need subframe connectors on those cars. These cars, you need subframe connectors, but that's something that's worth doing. Okay, but here's the thing. In that test they did with the is it E90, E92 V8 M3, right? Versus this Mustang, the BMW's like $20,000 more. The Mustang's quicker in a straight line, had more G-forces by a 1/10 on the skid pad, was a little bit faster with a little bit higher G-forces through their figure 8 skid pad thing they do. And on the road course, which I think it was Willow Springs, BMW M3 was quicker. And you go, well, of course, it's an M3. It's independent rear suspension. It's got better weight balance. It's got a higher revving motor. It's got all the things. It feels great inside. It holds you in place better. And it was 9/100ths of a second quicker. 9/100ths. Not even a 1/10. Let me ask you something. Is not even a 1/10 around a road course worth $20,000 more? It's not. Because you buy that Mustang and you put some lowering springs on it. And you can, that's kind of what I'm getting back to. You don't even have to spend like a lot of money on lowering springs. You put some lowering springs on it that are a little bit stiffer. And then you don't even have to be that much lower, 1/2 inch lower, but stiffer, okay? And then you put some different shocks and struts on it that have heavier dampening to control that stiffer spring. That Mustang would outrun that M3 that has better weight distribution and higher revving engine and seats that hold you in place better, and it feels better and all this stuff. And like, there's a solid axle Mustang. Kind of what I'm getting back to here on that is you don't have to spend that money. A lot of people will just, a lot of people, especially big YouTubers and people that grew up in cities where there's BMWs and Mercedes everywhere and they were on every street corner and that was the car to get because it made you look rich. People will just say that those things are better. They're not. They're not better. I've seen E46 M3s, and that's from the same generation as my Mustangs here, right? I've seen those things with leather pulling up on the dashes. I've seen them with the consoles that don't open well. Things on the dash broke, like a cup holder or something. There's something on the dash that opens that breaks really regularly on those. Then they have their rod bearing issues, and they have their subframe disconnecting from the body issues, and all the other things. There's the big three. So it's rod bearings, the subframe, and there's something else. I don't remember. Why would you pay $20-something thousand for one of those cars when straight line speed, if you're wanting pretty comparable, manual Mach 1, this is an auto, okay? But manual Mach 1, pretty comparable in straight line speed. You can get one of those things for $10,000 less with the same miles and put a little bit of money into it, a few thousand in mods, and it will outdo that BMW on the road course. So what are we doing here? Honestly, I think it's just keeping up with the Joneses. People are just spending more money on these cars and saying they're better and telling their friends they're better, and then those people tell people they're better just because it costs more. It's not really worth it. Now, that can come down to a smaller scale too. These Mustangs here, okay? Let's get back over here in front of this Mustang. These Mustangs here. Did I need to spend $1,300 on this suspension? If the $200 I spent, or less than $200 I spent on the suspension for this red one, gets me 80-90% of the same performance on a road, what's the point? And so, guys, not only do I think these Mustangs are way better than people give them credit for, subframe connectors, a few mods, okay? Subframe connectors, a little bit of a lowering spring, a stiffer spring, different shocks and struts, better seats. Way better than people give them credit for. Now, if you got a GT or V6, you got to upgrade the brakes too. I'll give you that. You got to upgrade the brakes, but you don't have to do anything crazy. You don't have to do the Cadillac ATS brakes, or you don't have to go to anything like crazy Brembo, whatever. You just get some Cobra brakes for $300-$350. They're fine. They're more than enough. And kind of what it comes down to, when I look at it, I'm just like, you know, this car, I've taken it out. I've taken it on some curvy roads. It's got, you know, NT 555s, which is a 320 tread wear tire. That one has Sumitomos. Not great tires. I would absolutely love to run Michelin Pilot Sport 4S's. That'd be awesome. Because I think that's a better tire. Obviously, a lower tread wear tire is going to have more grip and stuff, but then you also come down to like the more summer performance oriented it is, the less I would be able to have fun with it on a day like today where it's like in the 50s. I didn't really want Sumitomos. I wasn't a fan of those. Now, I actually kind of do like these tires. This is their kind of second gen, or the most recent gen. It's the HTR Z5, right? I'm actually fairly impressed with these tires. When they've broke away, they have gotten, you know, the rear end of this car has stepped out on me some. And they're really quiet. They don't give you much noise before they kind of let go, which can be a little bit of an issue. But if you're, you know, a decent driver and you stay on top of the car, if you're pushing it pretty hard, it's not an issue to catch. The green one handles really well. This is on its factory springs and Coney orange shocks and struts with its factory seats. You can see my microfiber I used for glasses and cleaning screens and stuff. It's factory seats and stuff. They don't hold you in place as well as the seats in that one. But although I will say that the seats in that one were the best mod I've done to that car, was it worth $1,400? It's a lot of money to mod these things. I think maybe we should start getting back to kind of how my approach for buying the cars is. These are really good cars, and so we can get really good parts. So I'm actually really liking what I've done to this car, which is just take the front isolators out and change the wheels and tires. And the Mach 1, you know, I've changed the front springs, but to a different set that I already had or could have bought for $100 or less. And then the red car out there, you know, like I said, I'm less than $200 into that drop. And it rides good. It handles good for what it is and the speeds that I'm going to drive at. There's not really a need to spend that much more money. It does need subframe connectors, and it will get subframe connectors. That's something these cars need, because the chassis flexes so much right there in that middle area. Because the rear subframe comes up to like here, and then the front one comes back to like here. So there's like an area. It's not that wide. Let's say it's like that. Okay, there's an area in there where it's right where the seat mounts, and it's just kind of flexible. And so that needs to be fixed. I like these cars, guys. I've had no one Trans Am. Like, you know, I've been in a bunch of Fortune Camaros. Okay. These are better cars. Now, you might not like the styling of them. That's fine. That's whatever, okay? But they're actually really good cars. And, most importantly, we don't have to spend as much money as we're spending. Now, if you're a drag racer and you're trying to go fast in a straight line, engine stuff costs a lot of money. I get that. Sometimes you got to spend a lot of money to do that type of stuff. If you're just going for a lowered stance, you want to make them corner a little better and stuff, you really don't have to get into as much money as some of this crap costs. I think we need to be looking at different things. You know, I like a lot of the non-PI Mustang guys that switch to PI heads and get, you know, extra 30, 40 horsepower. That stuff like that is really cool. Now, obviously, with the 2-valve cars, you're not going to get a lot of power unless you go boost. I get that. You know, you can do a drop by finding some different parts off a different car that gets you where you want to be. And that was kind of the old hot rodding way of things before there were a ton of aftermarket companies making a ton of parts for all kinds of stuff. You used to have to go out and just find stuff that worked for you. Take measurements of what you need, go to the junkyard, and I want to learn to weld, and I want to do more things for myself and not buy as much stuff. You can find the formulas for suspension parts. Yeah, a person could make their own A-arms, right? That's not too difficult. And you could even take a set of like takeoff A-arms off of a wrecked car that had. That's another thing too. Even if you want some of these nicer, higher end parts and stuff, you don't have to buy them new. Buy them off a wrecked car. Get on eBay and look for the stuff you want. I'll get on eBay and search for a part number for some like Maximum Motorsports parts that I want, and I can find parts, here and there. You have to keep looking. Sometimes it doesn't happen quick. You can do this stuff for cheap, guys. You can do it for a lot cheaper than just throwing thousands of dollars at a car to get it to handle a little better. You can, throw a few hundred at the car, and it takes a little bit more time and stuff, but you spent less money. And honestly, with the way things are going, house prices are through the roof still. And while the stock market's doing good, the job market said they gained a bunch of jobs, but then I keep seeing layoffs all over the place. Things are getting more expensive faster than our pay is increasing. If we want to keep these cars going, if we want to do this stuff, we're going to have to get a little bit resourceful. The way the old school guys did it, I don't really see much point in these Euro cars that break constantly and have all kinds of issues. I guess that's why I'm cheap old cars guy though. So I hope you guys like this one. Hit the like button, hit subscribe, please. Check out my merch store if you enjoyed this. I've got what I call my cheap old merch, and it's cheap old cars and cheap old merch. That's pretty funny. It's kind of retro, early 90s design stuff. But yeah, check it out. Buy a shirt if you want to support the channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you all for watching. Thank you so much for watching. I've got almost 500 subscribers now, which is amazing and great. I'm so thankful for everyone who watches. I do want to grow this. I want to grow it to be monetized and eventually be bigger, and maybe eventually be something that I can live off of, and then beyond that, start getting into doing some training courses on things. I would like to have a bigger shop and teach kids how to do basic auto maintenance and detailing and all these kinds of fun things, and get more people into the car culture, because we're losing the car culture and we got to get it back. We got to get it back. So that's why it's called Cheap Old Cars and Culture. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.